right, welcome, one and all, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, a fantastic week. I know myself and Andre have had an all right week so far because we've both been to the theatre, to the cinema, the wonders of the cinema, to
We have
watch
indeed.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So, just to preface this, okay, it's not the usual panel. It's just going to be me and Andre discussing the movie because it opened a day earlier for us over on this part of the world. So we've both seen the film. So we're going to be reviewing it and chatting about it. The likelihood is that there will be spoilers. I'm not going to say that there's going to be none. We're just going to be, we will be talking about it open ended. We'll be discussing it. And it will likely, devolve into some spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers, please do not watch this video because it's just simply we can't guarantee it, and I'm sure the likelihood is we'll touch on some spoilers here and there. Now, obviously, I'm joined by Andre from Midnight's Edge. So, how are you doing, good sir? You all right?
I'm doing good. Yeah, as you mentioned, I've been to the cinema. Actually, I've been to the cinema more the past 3 weeks than I have in the past 3 years, it feels like. And all the movies I've seen, the last one, of course, being Guardians of the Galaxy, but before that, Evil Dead Rise, Renfield, the Pope's Exorcist.
Did you watch Pope's Exorcist as well? Did you?
Yeah. And
What did you think? What did you think of that one?
Not as good as I had hoped, because I quite like possession exorcist style movies.
Yeah.
So I liked it fine. I thought it had way too big a budget, and that was detrimental to it because they had money to spend on all that CGI bullshit towards the end, and that detracted from the movie. It would have been far better if they could have kept that more grounded, kept it more like a battle of wills, kept hell and everything like that more implied. This is like a perfect example of sometimes a movie is actually better off with a little bit less money, because that forces the storytellers to convey what they want to convey in more subtle ways than just, let's put hell on screen.
So, okay, we're not reviewing Pope's Exorcist, by the way, guys. I didn't realize Andre had seen the film, and I don't know anyone else who has actually seen it because no one watched it. So obviously, I've been reviewing movies, week on week out lately, and that was one of the films that I watched, and I think I had a very similar opinion to you. Is that Russell Crowe carried this film. You go to watch his performance. His performance was great in this. I thought he did a really good job.
Russell Crowe, he is a fantastic European. He was a great Roman in The Gladiator. He was a great Greek in Thor: Love and Thunder. To me, I hated that movie, but the highlight of it was the superbly Greek Zeus. I have never seen Zeus be played quite that Greek. The only thing that was missing was him breaking out, saying "Hello, another stereotypical Greek stuff like that. But beyond that, he was the perfect Greek. And here he was more Italian than pizza and spaghetti. And it was fantastic, and I'm all for it. So yeah, that man, he's a great European. Really nailing the accents, getting into all of the stereotypes. I'd love to see him do a Norwegian at some point. That should be fun.
Yeah. I agree. So again, ladies and gents, obviously people sort of dropping in here. It's going to be me and Andre, obviously because we've had a few more people drop in. It's going to be me and Andre reviewing and discussing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because we did, we've had the chance to see it a day before everyone else because, well, before the majority of you guys in the States, because it opened up a day early in this part of the world for whatever reason. We will likely touch on spoilers, so this is your spoiler warning. I'm not going to give you another one. Unfortunately, I can't keep backtracking to this and doing this, so spoilers will likely be touched on. If you want to join in,
maybe put a spoiler banner or something like that on the screen.
I don't have one.
Okay, if someone had put a comment, spoiler alert, we can highlight that comment or something.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. Okay. But for ladies and gents, if you want to join in this review discussion, once we've sort of, rounded up our thoughts, we'll cover your super chats. So you want to support the show, join in the conversation as well. Super chats are the way to do it. And also, Midnight's Edge is linked down below in the description box as well. So please do check them out. I'm sure you already have, and I'm sure you're already subscribed. So there you go. We've got a spoiler alert there. So most of the people watching this already know my opinion on the film because I've dropped my review. Give me your thoughts. Just a quick summary, and then I'll give you mine, and then we'll dissect it from there. I think is a good way to go.
Very quick summary is that I liked the movie a great deal. I enjoyed it far more than I thought I would. I will say right away that the first Guardians of the Galaxy is my favorite movie of the entire MCU. That is my number one, and then it's like some gap before we get to Avengers Infinity War, which is my second favorite MCU movie. But the first Guardians of the Galaxy, that's my all-time favorite MCU movie and one of my all-time favorite comic book movies in general. The second one I also greatly enjoy, but not nearly as much as the first. And I would place this one, the third one, above the second. So to me, this was a movie which is right up there with back when Marvel actually was good. To me, this is a movie that might as well have come out 5 years ago, before Phase 4.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, so that's my very brief summary. I went in expecting the worst, and I was very pleasantly surprised. So maybe that could be I've only seen it once. I haven't had time to really digest it or something. So maybe since I was expecting it to be bad, that my opinion is slightly inflated because of that. Maybe I won't like it as much upon a second viewing. But after that first viewing, I greatly enjoyed what I saw.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Interesting. So I went into it wanting it to be good. I don't think I necessarily I didn't really have any preconceived ideas, right? I didn't. Guardians of the Galaxy is a property that I like. I really like the actors involved, specifically a few of them, right? Like I really like Zoe Saldana. I think she's an incredibly underrated actress that is underutilized in the wider Hollywood. I really, really like her, and I think she's very, very good as Gamora. Really like Chris Pratt. So, I like this as a property, and I really like the first one. Didn't care so much for the second one. So I wanted this to be good. Unfortunately, and I liked the film, just as an FYI, I liked the film. But if it didn't end, if they didn't stick the ending, they didn't stick the landing, I would have left that cinema going, what an epic waste of my time. Because it meanders, it juggles multiple storylines, and it's a byproduct, unequivocally, I think, firmly, of the fact that they knew they had to wrap it all up. So they just threw a whole bunch of stuff together. And some of it lands, some of it doesn't. The heart of the movie being Rocket is very well done. Not overly sure whether you should take your kid to watch this, though. Not going to lie. The F-bomb, the curse words.
I would torture of the fluffy little animals.
Yeah, I mean, even that got me a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think a child would really get. I think they'd really get affected by this. So, all in all, I had a good time with the film, but that's only because they stuck the landing. If they didn't stick the landing, if the ending wasn't satisfying to me, I would have walked out of that cinema and gone, "That was dog shit." Honestly, just straight away, I would have gone, "That was dog shit." But they landed it for me, and I went, "Good." I enjoyed that film. So there's my quick summary.
Yeah. And the funny thing, as we spoke about before, we are largely in agreement here. It's just a matter of like how we choose to value things, because I listen to what you say and I can't argue with you. There's nothing wrong in what you're saying. I agree. I think that this movie maybe is more stuffed because from the time when the script was first written to when it was filmed, James Gunn had been fired. I think that perhaps we got 2 movies worth of material stuffed into this one. I
Well, not
don't
even
know that for
that.
certain, but
No, we do actually. So recently it came out that James Gunn said he was going to explore the Rocket Raccoon stuff in a spin-off TV show or something like that, or a spin-off movie, a Rocket and Groot movie. So we do
right.
actually kind of know that, yeah.
Well, that explains it. Yeah, because I see what you're saying, because this is also something that I said in the Midnight Edge stream, which we did yesterday, and which you will also find clipped in Midnight Edge live archives. That I think that the movie's 2 hour, 2.5 hour playing
It's
time,
long.
it's long, but it didn't feel long to me. To me, I like it was.
Did
I
it
thought it was.
not?
No, it didn't.
Wow.
I thought it was justified given the story they went with.
Okay. All right.
However,
Yeah. I'll agree with
yeah,
that. I'll agree with that.
given the story that they chose to tell here. But of course, an argument can, of course, be made that they could have told a completely different story, and that way gotten the running
Mm,
time way less than 2 hours. But given that this is the story that they wanted to tell, and since James Gunn is now done with Marvel, he's the only one who can do these characters right. If Thor, Love, and
mm,
Thunder proved anything other than how good a Greek Russell Crowe can be, it is that no one but James Gunn can write these characters, because that in that
mm.
opening sequence, the Thor: Love and Thunder, it also had Guardians of the Galaxy, and
Yeah.
everything was wrong because James Gunn hadn't written it. It was written by Taika Waititi, so they were
Mm,
James Gunn characters written by Taika Waititi, and to me, they just all stuck out like a sore thumb. They
yeah.
weren't kind to each other. Like, for instance, they always bicker and fight, but they do so with like love underneath.
So,
And that was absent in Thor: Love and Thunder. It was all
so
I'd rather they do like this 2.5 hour movie and end the story the way it needs to be ended than tell a completely different one and leave things open ended.
mm. Well, so let's start to break it down. Let's start to discuss it, right? Because let's talk about what they introduced and the sort of multiple subplots that were going on in this film. So obviously
Oh
it's
yeah.
Rocket's story, but they introduce Adam Warlock as a mechanism to tell Rocket's story because Adam Warlock is sent to go and get Rocket, and in doing so injures him to the point that the Guardians choose to put a med pack on him, and then there's a kill switch in there because he's proprietary property of the High Evolutionary, who I will say, very good actor.
Yes.
He was excellent. He's one of the best things about this movie. He
I
was
know.
superb. But Adam Warlock is a fucking dunce, and it really annoyed me. He's got the mental faculties of a child, so he's this incredibly powerful being. And on paper, you're like, oh, that's interesting. No, it's not. It's not interesting to me because the comedy part of it, because they played it up for laughs, and the comedy, it just didn't land for me. I thought, right? So obviously they introduce Adam Warlock as a mechanism to get Rocket. He goes to get Rocket. Rocket gets injured. Adam Warlock flies off because he's injured, and then the things go on where the Guardians have to then go find the High Evolutionary to fix Rocket. That's basically what it is, right? That's the story. But Adam Warlock, there's this little bits and pieces of Adam Warlock here and there. High Evolutionary takes him out of the cocoon early. That's why he's got the mental faculties of a child. But I thought they would have done something a bit better with that. So, later in the movie, Mother, uh, Elizabeth Debicki's character, the Golden Girl, gets killed, and he's flying to save her at that point in time, and he's like, "Mother." I would have thought they'd have had him then go on an absolute rampage, and they didn't. In fact, he doubled down on his mission to go and kill the Guardians at that point. And I was like, that seems so bizarre. They didn't do anything interesting with it. And it's not Will Poulter, because I think he actually made a really good Adam Warlock, or could make a really good Adam. It was just how it was written. I just thought it was a bit shit, to be honest. And it went nowhere. And it's a character that should be introduced with a bit more respect. I think personally. I mean, your thoughts on that as a part of a subplot?
I partially agree with you. I agree that he was, if there was one character that was left with the short end of the stick here, it was Adam Warlock, absolutely. And yeah, I thought that Will Poulter was always weird choice for the role, possibly inspired, but always weird. It would depend completely on which direction they would take the character in the adaptation. Remember, this is not a literal comic book, or like it's not the comic book version of Adam Warlock. This is James Gunn's Adam Warlock, and James Gunn, he always puts his own unique spin on characters, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. And I think that many will agree that in the case of Adam Warlock, it was for the worse. However, if you go back and check out the original comics, it took a long time before Adam Warlock, and Adam Warlock is a really great, awesome character, but it took a long time before he became that character. When he first emerged from his cocoon, way back in the Fantastic Four, back in the, I don't know, 60s or something like that, he didn't even have a name. The name was given by Jim Starlin, I think it was Jim Starlin. He was certainly the one who defined the character. But before then, he was basically just an empty shell that became, that was something of a fool that tried to like kidnap Thor's girlfriend and stuff like that. He was just referred to as him for many years before they gradually retooled him and gave him an identity, and he became Adam Warlock. But basically, he was born as something of a tabula rasa, and he had to learn everything because he was a little bit thick. So the Adam Warlock that people know from the comics today and have known from in the comics since basically the whole Infinity War saga in the comics, that was an Adam Warlock at the end of many years of evolution since hatching from his cocoon. This Adam Warlock is still one in his relative infancy. This is someone that has recently hatched from his cocoon. An argument can easily be made that this Adam Warlock is actually smarter and far more sophisticated than the comic book version of Adam Warlock,
Yeah.
the same time frame from when he was hatched. So if this is a character that Marvel chooses to follow up in later adventures, and there's nothing to say that they can't. James Gunn, he doesn't own any of these characters. So if Marvel wants to, they can carry on the adventures of Adam Warlock and then have him continue to evolve just like it did in the comics. So if you have read the comics since the late 70s, you'll be disappointed by this Adam Warlock. But check out the comics from the early 70s and late 60s, and you'll see what James Gunn was going for here.
Yeah, I again, like we said before we even started, we'll probably agree with one another on a lot of things. I agree. I just think the execution fell short. But I can't disagree with you. Next subplot, Gamora and Star-Lord. Didn't like it. I didn't like it in this. I thought it was hodgepodge together to quickly. This one specifically to me was them unequivocally going, shit, we need to wrap this up because Zoe Saldana's done with the character now. So we need to tie it up. We have to wrap this up. And I thought that in and unto itself would have made a good movie. And a lot of the comedy that could have come from that wasn't in this. Could have come from that as a movie in and unto itself. Doing a heist that she plans, and a lot of the bare bones basics that we already got in this movie specifically have that in its own movie. Without the emotional weight of some other things getting involved, you could have had it much more in line with the first one.
I agree.
And then still end the way it did.
Yeah.
But I just thought, again, it's a byproduct of them going, crap, we need to wrap this up. Zoe Saldana's done. James Gunn's done. A lot of these characters are done. We need to wrap this up now, otherwise we've got a loose end. And I just thought that was a shame. You know, I don't think it's anyone's. Is it anyone's fault? Maybe, but whatever. I don't think it was handled as well as it should have been. And because there's so many other moving elements, you're dealing with Rocket Raccoon, the constant flashbacks, flash forwards, all these kind of things. I just felt like that was really bad. You know, it just didn't work for me personally. And I really like those characters. I like their interaction. I'm rooting for them. I like it. It's good. You know, Gamora, Star-Lord, be together, that sort of crap. But it just, fell bad for me personally.
I agree completely. If there was like one character subplot that with ease could and probably should have been exercised, it was Gamora. There was really no need for her to be there. If you look at what role she served in the story, she was only there to enhance the arcs of two other characters. But there was nothing for her in the movie to do. She would have been better served to be completely removed from it and be in a spin-off movie, the next Guardians of the Galaxy, with Stallone's Guardians, and hang out with them, because that was the family that she found, which is fun because we saw like those Guardians at the end of the previous Guardians of the Galaxy, and they are the ones who were the original Guardians of the Galaxy in the comics. The team that we know right now, with Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon and everything, I mean, that's actually Guardians of the Galaxy version 2.0 in the comics. The version 1.0, that was all the characters that we saw at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2, and which appeared again here. But in my opinion, that would have been better if Marvel had continued with, this is the new characters that we will continue following beyond James Gunn, rather than to honestly waste screen time, because that's really what they did. She was only there to enhance the storylines of Peter Quill and of Nebula. That's it. No other reason for her to be there.
Well, I'm glad you agree. Now, let's talk about what I did like, and let's do a compliment sandwich, I guess. So, what I really liked was Drax, his arc through the movie, right? And it's a subtle arc; it's not massive, right? It realistically is actually his arc through all of the films reaches its culmination here. You know, he's a big dumb idiot, he's a dumbass, and that's to the effect of what they say in the film. And then it culminates here with him revealing what he's really good at is actually being a dad, which is an interesting sort of comparison, or polar opposite, should I say, to, so what he was in the comics, his wife and his daughter gets killed. It's the same in the movies, and that's why he becomes Drax the Destroyer. So I think that was a really nice way to wrap up his story, with him revealing to everyone, not on purpose, but he interacts with the children that the High Evolutionary had, experimented on, and he shows himself to be a really good father figure. And I really liked how the Guardians then acknowledge that and go, no, you weren't born to be a destroyer, you were born to be a dad. I really liked that. Didn't like the way they handled his humor through the movie, though. I didn't think a lot of his humor landed, and it's not Dave Bautista's line delivery, because his humor's worked in the other Guardians films. It was how it was written. Thoughts?
I agree that I don't think that the whole thing was about him in the end, the whole trilogy as a whole. But I think
no, of course not. No, I just mean like his arc through the movies. That's all.
But I think it's an extremely interesting observation, because I actually have the exact same observation as you do, only for another character.
Or Nebula.
But yes.
Yeah, no, so do I. But
Yeah,
I'm just honing in on. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I agree.
yeah,
See, we do agree on a lot of stuff. I agree with that as well. But I'm picking it out so we got a bit of
yeah,
structure here.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
just talking about Drax at this point in time.
But I think it's. I agree completely with what you say. Again, it's a very, very fair
What
point. And
you said you liked the humor though. Did you think his humor landed? Because I thought it was terribly written in this one. Like honestly, I
I,
rolled my eyes at a lot of the jokes. A
yeah,
lot of the jokes.
I don't think that the jokes were terribly written per se, so much as they didn't tonally fit. Because
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
because his I don't mind the writing because there's nothing wrong with the way that he was written, and this is
Mm,
why this is not an issue to me, because every single line he said, everything, it was in character. He was
mm,
consistent with how he has always been. But you know what's different this time? The difference is that before he has made those jokes when they have landed in a
yeah.
1 hour, 40-minute movie, which is light-hearted and fun, and then it emphasizes it. That is not this movie. This is not a fun movie. Uh, this is a movie that is 2.5 hours long. It is dark, it is somber. At parts, the whole thing feels like a funeral. And that means that now he suddenly sticks out a little bit with this his lines and everything, because now
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
funny lines in a movie which isn't funny. But still, I don't mind that because it's true to his character. He is the same character as he's always been, and these
Mm,
are the same kind of lines that he always would be making. Only difference is that now we, as the audience, see him in a different kind of adventure where we come from it from a different point of view and a different mindset, so we don't
mm.
react to his lines the same way that we otherwise would. But the character is still true to himself.
Yeah. Okay. No, I agree with that. Take it away with your observations about Nebula then. Enlighten me.
Nebula is the heart and soul of this movie.
Although, I've got to interject real quick. Why did they
Go for
give
it.
her a paunch? What have they done? She's not fat. Karen Gillan's not fat. They've given her like a little fatty paunch thing. It's so bizarre,
I didn't notice that.
isn't it? Did you not notice it, mate? It's on the poster. How did you not notice it?
Well, I know that transposed her, but that wasn't her body or anything. So I
No,
completely
walking
disregarded that.
around in this film, you can see this weird little. Oh, mate, you gotta watch it. It's so bizarre.
Okay, I didn't even
It's
notice.
so weird. So odd.
What I did notice with her is that to me she was the not Rocket, but she was the heart and the soul of this movie. Perhaps it was
Mm,
unintentional. And I also think that over the course of the trilogy as a whole, she is perhaps the most interesting character because she is the one that has gone through the greatest change of all of them. And this is like
mm,
an observation that I made ever since the second movie is that then she started out as the villain in the second movie, and then she didn't really join the team per se by the end of the second movie. She just so much as she
yeah,
ended up with them, and you
yeah.
could like tell that she was like always on the outside, like they tolerated her presence. But she was never really one with them. Even in the Christmas special, which takes place chronologically, not too long before this, you could like tell that it was the Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, and her. She wasn't really part of the team. She was too angry and everything like that. Too didn't value them, didn't appreciate them. They
Mm,
didn't let her in, but she didn't want to be let in.
mm,
Whereas in this movie, then we see that there is like a much greater mutual love there than anyone will let on, especially when she learned that spoiler alert. It's like to me, like the heart of the movie was the one scene where she learned that Rocket is okay and she breaks down,
mm.
which is something we
Yeah,
have never seen of her before.
I agree that. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then also towards the end of the movie, Again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but she is the one that is perhaps the most altruistic of them all, and the one
Yes.
who extends the greatest olive branch to the person of the team that she liked the least, that she respected the least. But now suddenly she's like, I was so wrong about you. I need you. I need you for what we can accomplish together here.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Okay. Good. Nice. All right. Yeah. I
So
agree.
to me,
I agree.
she was the heart of the whole trilogy, which was all about a bunch of misfits that had no family or anything like that, and of all of them, few came from as broken as background as Nebula, and no
Yeah.
one were as damaged as Nebula. And the one that truly continues this mission of coming together as a family and extend that towards other in the end was Nebula. She is the
Okay.
one that has gone through the single greatest arc and has learned a single lesson. And to me, not just of this movie, but therefore for the trilogy of the whole, actually is the heart of the whole thing.
I'll agree with that. I will agree with that. On to something which I did not like and is a problem with James Gunn in general. Putting his fucking brother in stuff. His brother did not need such a prominent role in this film. And it stuck out like a sore thumb. To me it did. It just like I understand wanting to sort of wrap up the fact that Yondu died and do you know what I mean? I understand that. Didn't need to be such a big focus, and it was quite a big focus. You know, like he had 3 or 4 dedicated scenes
Yeah, I agree.
specifically
This
about
is
him.
also something that could have easily been cut. He did not need to go through this huge thing to master something he should have mastered by the end of the previous movie. That one scene where like we need you to bring the cavalry right now, that would have been quite sufficient cameo.
That would have been a good one as
Yeah,
well because it would have felt earned because he wasn't around that much,
exactly.
and then have him come in at the end. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
bring the cavalry, help us.
yeah.
That would have been a much better addition, and it wouldn't have felt forced. Whereas his inclusion throughout the movie just felt like typical James Gunn, just putting his fucking mates and brothers and stuff. And it does start to annoy me with James Gunn after a while. Just seeing his mates and his family and stuff. I'm like, for fuck's sake, come on now.
Yeah, I don't. I think they're all good, so I don't really mind it. But I agree that the movie was 2.5 hours, and given the story that they went with, they that running time was justified. But they could have cut it down to 2 hours 25 minutes, and those 2 scenes up to the cavalry towards the end there, they could have been left at the cutting room floor, and the movie would have been better
Yeah,
for it.
absolutely. Now, let's talk about the heart and soul of the movie then, or as the movie presents it anyway, Rocket. Rocket and his story. It was absolutely brutal. It was brutal.
Yep.
And quite I don't know. Like I said in a video today, I'm like, I don't know whether if you're a parent, I genuinely recommend watching this movie first before taking your kids. Because normally an MCU film, you can go, yeah, whatever, it's for kids, who cares? Just go watch it, right? This is one of those movies that has a fair amount of curse words in, which seemed very out of place to me. You know, and I don't care about cursing. I don't see an issue with it whatsoever. But it felt very out of place, even though this is a somber, more serious movie. It just felt weird because they actually use the curse words for comedy as well. So it seemed odd. I would understand if they used it in a serious tone because it would fit the tonal output of the film on a whole. So that was odd. But then also, like I say, you know, if you're a parent and you are a parent,
I am a parent, yeah.
would you take your now you've seen this? Would you take your kids to watch this, or would you have hoped to watch it first and then take? Do you see what I mean? Do you agree with that or not? Because to me, like I'm not a parent, but if I was, this is a film I would genuinely want to watch first just to make sure.
Oh, absolutely. I would do that with most movies. Like the only ones where I would like take them take them without knowing what I'm taking them to, because my kids are still fairly young. They're still so young that I wouldn't take them to an MCU movie. Like that's a non-issue anyway. But if they were a couple of years older, I would still take them to an MCU, because most MCU movies, they are rated PG-13. That's such a bullshit rating that doesn't really mean anything. When translated to Norwegian standards, like when they are re-rated here, they can come back as rated for ages 7 and up. They can come back rated ages 11 and up, and sometimes they can come up rated 15 and up. So I would like check the local rating, which is far better than the US rating, a little bit more diversified, a little bit more on the details of what to expect. So that's like one thing. But for a movie like this, I mean, I'd never take them to an MCU movie without knowing exactly what I was doing. Certainly given the age that my children are. With kids that are like 11, after 10, then of course that's a different matter.
Okay, well, I mean that's fair enough. But
yeah.
So, what your thoughts on Rocket as a whole, his story? Because I quite liked it.
I thought it was fantastic.
It's an odd description, isn't it? I liked that story. I mean, it was brutal. It was very good to see the backstory and feel more for a character that you sort of got hints at here and there.
Yeah.
And it was a good way to introduce the High Evolutionary in that fashion, because one, so to flip between the two, I said it before, the High Evolutionary, very good character in this, very good actor, incredible, does fly off the deep end a little bit as like a sort of a megalomaniac, and I don't, but a bit sort of crazed towards the end, because he's obsessed with Rocket, so much so that his ship obliterates itself, and you're like, would the High Evolutionary do that as a character? I don't think so. But with a god complex, you could justify it, because with a god complex, he wouldn't like to be bested. So I guess from that perspective, he would go all out.
Exactly.
Maybe.
I bought that completely. I had absolutely no issues whatsoever with seeing why he was obsessed, because basically what you have to see is that this is a Dr. Frankenstein.
On steroids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. First of all, I agree with you. Massive kudos to the actor playing him, Chukwudi Iwuji. I first became aware of him in the Peacemaker series, which is another James Gunn product, because that's where I first saw him, and he impressed me there. I thought he was absolutely amazing in Peacemaker. So I had absolutely no qualms about him playing the High Evolutionary here. I know there were some people that were upset about the race bending and stuff like that, but I wasn't upset about it, not in this occasion, because I knew that this time there is such a talented actor doing it. You know, all that bullshit they said about how incredibly unbelievable a talent Jonathan Majors was, right? I didn't buy into that for 1 second. I've said it the whole time. I think that Jonathan Majors is overrated. Yes, he's a serviceable actor, but he ain't nothing compared to all the praise that he was showered with. He ain't that good.
The praise he got, this guy should have got.
Yes.
He's exceptional as a villain. Honestly, this guy, I really liked him as the High Evolutionary, but I think this guy as Kang, that sort of viciousness, that callous nature that he displayed as the High Evolution, he would be epic as Kang.
If this guy
would be incredible as Kang.
If Chukwudi had been Kang instead of the overrated Jonathan Majors, the MCU would be in a very different place right now, because Jonathan Majors, he's just someone that basically won the lottery. He was in the right place at the right time, had the right agent, had the right look, and so he won out a role that he really wasn't cut out for. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Jonathan Majors is overrated. This guy right here, as you said, Chukwudi, he deserves all of the praise that was given to Jonathan Majors. Chukwudi is an exceptional actor. He really, really is, and that completely came through here. So I thought he was fantastic as the High Evolutionary. And I also, just to get back to where we started, that he would be this obsessed with Rocket, I buy it completely. Because he said it himself. He had created millions upon millions of beings, and all of them, they were like better than Rocket physically. Or not all of them, but many of them were better than Rocket physically. Physically, perfection had been created many times over. But mentally, Rocket, he had
invention. That's what it was.
Invention. He was suddenly able to see something that the High Evolutionary himself couldn't see. He bested him. He took one look at thing, and he saw something that the High Evolutionary and all of his team couldn't see. He was a case where the creation had already exceeded the creator, and that's what
I really liked that because it's almost throwaway. He's like, oh, it's because of this. Sorry, what? Because of this. Blah 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 blah. You know, sort of subtle interaction, and then he's just like, yeah, prep his brain. I'm going to study it now. And then just walks off. You're like, what the fuck? Like, I really liked that. I liked like it's in that instantaneous moment of, yeah, it was this. You know, just super quick, blink and you miss it moment, and then that's the sort of motivation behind the whole thing. Really well done. You know, especially sort of Baby Rocket on how it's delivered, because again, it's that sort of childlike, sort of meek. Oh, I think it's this kind of thing. Like he knows it. It's like, oh, it's this. Oh, but yeah, really well done. Really well done. Enjoyed sort of finding out. Again, enjoyed is a weird term because it was gross and not particularly, it was quite heart-wrenching watching it all. But the whole sort of backstory of the group of animals that were created alongside Rocket, that was really quite sad. They did a really good job with that.
They did.
Yeah,
completely. And also, like, really nice references to the original Rocket Raccoon miniseries, where Lila and all those other characters were present. In much less tragic versions, but still. Absolutely perfect. I thought they nailed it completely. And Rocket Raccoon, he got his origin story, and we also got to see like why he obviously has like issues relating with others, but how much he really truly cares and how much he values the friends that he does have, especially those that will endure and stick with him.
I really liked Rocket's revenge on the High Evolutionary.
Yeah,
so good. And the fact that, so spoiler, I mean, there's spoiler alert on the screen right now anyway, but when it sort of culminates that Rocket Raccoon is going to escape, and he's going to take Lila, Floor, and Teeth with him. They get killed by the High Evolutionary, basically. And Rocket goes absolutely mental and hacks and claws and just disintegrates the High Evolutionary's face, rips it apart. And so in the trailer, you'll see the High Evolutionary looking different at each stage. And in his final form, he's wearing a mask, and we see his face degloved at the end of the film. And it is brutal. It is absolutely brutal.
Absolutely.
Not what I was expecting, but really well done.
Yeah, I did not expect that either. It was like, okay, so that really was your face.
Yeah. The VFX are so fucking terrible in Marvel films lately. And then they come out with that, and you're like, so why have they all been bad? And then you've got that looking so good. Like, you know
what I think? I think that that James Gunn personally oversaw it, and he didn't allow it to be bad.
Yeah, true.
There's no other way to explain why And also Victoria Alonso was long since fired, but that would have had nothing to do here. The only kind of like Victoria Alonso-ish thing that you saw was, to paraphrase my good friend Paul Chato, the lack of gear porn with like Nebula's prosthetics and stuff like that. It's so much like nanotech instead of like more like practical stuff like that. You had like these really simple solutions, which I would equate to like transporter in Star Trek, something just done to like save time and everything. But that was kind of like a wasted opportunity, and also to like show some of like Rocket's genius and everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he upgraded it, didn't he? Something like that. That's what
Yeah, he
said in
did.
the
I mean, this is
film.
something that that Nebula just told us that, oh yeah, like she was substantially upgraded by Rocket, and of course we've seen him being a complete and total like whiz kid with everything technical before, so this is like perfectly in character for him.
Yeah.
But in this case, we were just told. We don't get to like see him do anything. So in this movie, we just have to believe that he is genius. But that's fair because we've had 2 previous movies to see it.
Well, they do it all quickly, don't they? He's like, oh, touch it, blah blah blah, and then boom, he's got something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really like the backstory of Rocket. I thought it was well done. Again, is it the right placement for that as a backstory? I don't know. So, one thing I really didn't like about this movie, which I don't know whether you're going to agree or disagree, but when I think back to the first movie, right, I think about the soundtrack is the big part of that movie, and it was done in a really smart way. It was always Peter Quill listening to songs, so we the audience would hear what he's listening to. That's how it was done, right? I don't remember there being any scene where there's just a soundtrack being played that isn't then tied in with what a character is actually listening to specifically. This one, there is just soundtrack being played. It's like Suicide Squad or The Suicide Squad.
Well, there are a couple of scenes actually where you see that, oh, here they were listening to music. So
there's some where there isn't, completely not. So
no, somewhere, somewhere.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But more than enough for me to notice it and go, what the hell are they doing? This breaks away from the formula of the first one, which I thought was so intelligent.
Yep, I agree.
Okay,
I think that the music and the soundtrack was the single biggest flaw of the entire movie. One is that, exactly as you were saying, you have several times when the background music was just generic without it being woven into the story,
just a soundtrack,
like it was in the previous movies. So that was one thing. It was less. It wasn't as woven into it. That's one thing. The other is that, unlike the previous 2, I thought, this is just my personal taste in music, but I thought the soundtrack on this one was shit.
It was very weak. It was really, really weak. Really, really weak. Like shamefully weak.
Tremendously disappointing. What a waste of opportunity. Because what I was thinking towards like the end of the previous movie, when we have like the final gift for Peter Quill, is a Zune, which now has 300 songs, which aren't just from the 70s, but all the way up to the 2000s. You have 300 songs. That I'm like thinking, oh wow, we're gonna have a really kick-ass soundtrack with part 3, with like the best of the best from the 90s, with some obscure songs, with some kick-ass songs, and we just got this unbelievably boring bullshit.
Oh, it's mediocre as fuck.
Yeah. And when the highlight song, like the main action set piece song, spoiler, was No Stop Till Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys. You know, the exact same song that we heard just a couple of weeks ago in Super Mario.
Well, and also they're recycling the Beastie Boys for the Marvels as well, because they included that in the trailer.
Yeah, they did. But now I know why they did it.
Why?
Nerdrotic was the one that pointed it out to me in his video. I was
you just talking about the lyric thing?
Yeah, don't make me smile.
I disagree that that's actually the reason specifically.
That's
you
the
give
only piece.
You give Marvel far too much credit. Honestly, they're fucking so stupid.
That is the only audible part of the lyrics which is in the trailer. Don't tell me to smile. And then like one more line.
I don't know. I'm not prepared to give Marvel that much credit. I'm just not.
But anyway, if they had that whole song in the soundtrack, I would have been fine with that. But they don't. They have the same song that right now I consider belong to the Super Mario Brothers, and there were so many other awesome songs. I mean, they could have had like Top Thumper by Chumbawamba. I mean, that would have been awesome in this movie. They could have Song 2 by Blur. I mean, they could have.
They had I'm a Creep. Like what? Oh god!
Yeah, they really blew it.
Or I don't know. It was rubbish. The soundtrack was rubbish, and it was an actual soundtrack, which is bad because again, how they did it in the first one was so much smarter, so much better, and I just thought that was a shame, massive shame.
Yeah.
VFX on a whole, better still. And it's not necessarily this property's fault, because when we went into the cosmic element with the initial Guardians, they set the tone and the visual aesthetic, which has since been taken, by the multiversal. The multiversal aesthetic has robbed the cosmic aesthetic, and it all blends to the same crap. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, it all looks the fucking same. So it's not necessarily this film's fault, this franchise's fault, because they actually created this aesthetic for the cosmic world. But the CGI on a whole was better, but the aesthetic of that VFX currently now has just blended with everything else that we've seen lately. And I've got to point it out because that's just crap.
Yeah.
And it's not really this film's fault. It's the laziness of Marvel just taking the same aesthetic for, the multiverse world. You're like, well, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
The quantum world looked exactly the same as this. It could have been the same place, couldn't it? Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And also, I will give this slightly more credit, though, because it was more like a bio thing to this. So I'll give it more credit for that. To me, the big issue was the whole nanotech, which is just so simplistic.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'll give you that. I'm trying to think what else there is. I liked the nowhere set piece, the physical set piece.
Yeah.
Which they obviously had in the Christmas special as well, the holiday special. But I will say that actually looked to me like they reused some of the set pieces from Loki. I don't know if you got that vibe, but I definitely did.
I didn't notice. You
know?
Very well could be right, but I didn't notice that.
So when they're on that planet that was blowing up, Sylvie and Loki towards the end of the whole series.
Yeah.
Very similar orange ground aesthetic, orangey sort of buildings, things like that. It honestly looked like they've just reused some of the set pieces.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did, if they reused some assets.
But it was it was nice to see an actual set piece though, for a change.
Yeah.
Because I'm sick of the fucking sound stages that Marvel has, massively sick of that. So it was nice to see a physical set piece that they were playing with. It's nice to see them actually interact with stuff. So I did like that. What do you think of Cosmo, the dog? I thought that was a bit
annoying. That also something that was completely redundant. No need for Cosmo to be there. That was actually also an annoying little thing, the arc of Cosmo wanting to be called a good dog. I mean, that's also something that easily could have been cut, because that was it was so predictable exactly where it was. But I don't attribute that to Cosmo as much as I do to James Gunn's brother.
Yeah, it's just
because those were his scenes that Cosmo happened to be in that should have been cut.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'm trying to think what else there is really to talk about now.
Well, there is one thing. There is one thing that you missed out on, which is something that I actually have been missing ever since the very first movie, the opening scene. His grandfather.
Yeah.
Who lost his daughter and his grandson on the same day.
And
who and who Peter Quill has refused to come back to Earth to visit even once up until this movie.
I like, yeah, as a closer, I liked that. As part of his arc, I liked that. It was interesting that it came from Mantis as well. I really like that actress. She does a really good job, actually.
Yeah, she's really good.
Pom Clementieff or something like that.
From
She's really
Clement,
good.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
No, neither try. But she's good. Yeah, I'd like to see her in more things. She's good.
Yeah.
And yeah, as an arc, that was quite good for Peter. But again, wrong film for it. But still, as an arc, this is what I mean. Like, because he's talking about his family. Oh, I guess maybe it I don't know. As an arc, I don't think it should have been in this film. But it's a good arc. You know, it's a good arc where they address it. He's just jumping from person to person. He needs to go and learn how to swim. Obviously, be by himself. Be good with it. You know, in his own skin, and accept the sort of tragedy that befell him. I guess. And yeah, going back home at the end. Interesting. It does always annoy me when they're just like, "Oh, hi, I'm here to see blah blah blah." Yeah, sure, just come on in. Who the fuck are you first?
Yeah.
Like, it always annoys me in films when they do that. Like, she doesn't know who he is. She's like, come on in my house, you like 40-year-old man. Don't you worry about it.
Yeah. No, that was quite something. But still, that was something that I honestly have been wanting to see ever since the very first movie. I was like thinking this towards the end of the first, like, aren't you going to go back to your granddad? And same thing with the second movie, like, you have a granddad who's probably missing you. And so I was very happy to see that happen here towards the end of end of the run. So very happy with the inclusion of that. Many things could have been, well, not many things, but some things, some characters could have been left on the cutting room floor, but not that.
No, that was a good way to round out the trilogy, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, that's closure, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you? Well, speaking of it, because obviously we've sort of talked our way around to the end of the film now. What did you think of how they ended it with certain people leaving, certain people staying, and the disbanding of the Guardians, but not because obviously Rocket's still. I mean, it's in the post credits, isn't it? Rocket's still doing it with a bunch of new people. What did you think of that? Because the post credit scenes to me were completely useless.
I agree.
Worthless
I think the
entirely.
movie would have been far better off without post-credit scenes. This is one where they should have seen afterwards that okay, we already know that Rocket is the new head of the Guardians, so we don't need to see a scene of the new Guardians with them dragging a little girl along for the action. I did not like that. And we also don't need this extra scene with Peter having breakfast with his granddad. The reunion itself was enough. We don't need to see him sitting in his underwear eating cornflakes.
It takes the emotional weight away, doesn't it?
Exactly. We would have been better off with those scenes being cut away. They shouldn't have been there. That also needed to be left on the cutting room floor. So this is one time when I feel that this is actually quite an interesting reversal from the rest of Phase 4 and 5 so far. That the post-credit scenes up to this point have been the best part of, or in sometimes the only interesting things about the whole movie. Whereas in this case, the movie would have been better off without them completely because it actually detracted from it. So those are the two things. And the only other interesting thing to me towards the end there was when it said who would return, which to me was surprising because it's not what I would have expected.
So, so for those, we've got spoiler alert on the screen, so we can talk about it. So talk about Star-Lord will return, basically. Peter Quill, Star-Lord. I don't know. I am surprised. I don't know whether he will though. And what would you do with him as a character now? Let's put it this way: would you want to watch Chris Pratt Star-Lord in another movie with someone else with the current state of the MCU? Because I wouldn't. That wouldn't actually interest me remotely. They would actually actively put me off the film. And I like Chris Pratt, but I think the current state of the MCU with someone else directing him, someone else writing the character, I don't think I'd want to watch it because I think it would detract from the trilogy that's already happened.
I would watch it, but you know what I would much rather watch? I would much rather watch The Ravagers featuring Sylvester Stallone and Gamora. I'd much rather watch that. I'd much rather watch Nebula and Drax be brought into the fray for something. I'd much rather watch the continued adventures of Mantis. I mean, I'd sooner watch any of them before Star-Lord's solo adventures. I mean, what's so? I mean, he's just going to go straight back to the Guardians again afterwards. He's going to go back and hang out with Rocket Raccoon and what have you afterwards.
Yeah.
So would I see it? Yeah, sure, but I would. He's kind of like the last person that I would expect to see again, and he's also, honestly, the one I have the least need to see again. I mean, there are characters here that I feel like, oh yeah, we have plenty more adventures of this character to tell. Not with Star-Lord. Not anymore. Like, his story has been told. Now I'm excited to see Chris Pratt going hang out as Booster Gold in the DC universe. I'd much rather see that than, of course, one does not have to rule out the other thing here. But he's not the one I'm anxious to see again. I mean, bring me Drax, bring me Nebula, bring me Gamora, bring me Stallone. To a much lesser extent, Rocket Raccoon. But again, I feel the same way about Rocket Raccoon now as I do Star-Lord. Their stories have been told.
Yeah.
They have gone through their arcs. There's nothing more you can do with them other than to water them out at this point, which I feel I feel it would be much, much better to just go with characters that have more stories in them. Like alternate Gamora and Stallone. That would be like the first go-to place. And even Adam Warlock.
Yeah, I will agree with that. Actually. Well, Adam Warlock needs to be.
Yeah.
He needs to come back, I guess. Trying to think what else there is really.
If there's two characters that really could be retired here, it's Rocket Raccoon and Star-Lord. Not because they're bad in any way, quite the contrary. They're amazing characters, but they're amazing characters whose stories have now been told.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree.
And now they can ride into the sunset.
Yeah, I mean, they just wrapped it up nicely, didn't they? Like, there's nothing else. Really isn't anything else to tell there with how they've ended it and stuff. I think they did it well. So, yeah. Overall, for again, how I took this film, meandering, not all the humor lands. Music was a letdown. Story in the heart of the film's there, and because it ended nicely, as I don't mean thematically nicely. What I mean by is in they stuck the landing. It ended on a satisfying note for me. I liked the film, but if they didn't stick that bloody landing, I would have walked out of that cinema being deeply annoyed. I genuinely think I would have been deeply annoyed if they hadn't landed that, ended the film properly. Closing thoughts before we get to some super chats.
This is as good as Marvel is going to be for many, many years. This movie is a fluke, and it's all due to James Gunn. And after this movie, I am much more excited for the future of DC, although there are some red flags there too, than I am with Marvel, where there's nothing but red flags at the moment.
Yeah, true. I wonder as well, I wonder if they did have like a Kang tease in this, and they opted to go like Star-Lord, for instance, right? The closing post-credit scene, right? It's the closing post-credit scene. I wonder if that was actually something which they had shot initially for the film, right? As like a funny little hook before the end, So you get that emotional weight, and then a funny little hook, and then credits. I wonder if there was a Kang, post-credit scene, and then they opted to remove it because of the
I
whole
would not be
situation with Jonathan
surprised if there
Majors.
was. Yeah, I would not be surprised if there was, because it would make perfect sense. Because the Guardians movies, they have always had like post-credit scenes that connect to the larger overarching story being told. Not all the other movies have, but the Guardians movies have always had that.
Yeah.
So I'd be surprised if there wasn't a Kang tease or something like that as little as 1 month ago. But that is something that they can chop out and replace with something else real fast.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
I would
yeah.
not
That's
be
what I mean.
surprised.
Like,
Yeah.
this, I think, was literally just something which they. I think that closing post-credit scene was something which they shot as a closing hook, as a comedic hook, to offset the emotion, and then there was going to be something weighty and tension-filled with Kang, but they opted to remove it and replace it with this.
Probably.
I bet you anything that's the case. That's my.
I'm not taking that bet because I agree with you.
Yeah. So we do well. Al Humphrey sent a super sticker for £5. Thank you so much, my man. Gary sent a super chat for £5 and said, "Let me have a look." Sorry, says they have been teasing Adam since the first movie. They should have brought him in the MCU sooner. He was a part of Infinity War in the comics.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for a character that has been teased as much and built up as much, let down, disappointing, mental faculties of a child, that sort of thing. To me, disappointing. And yeah, definitely should have been brought in, in Infinity War. But then how do you justify it? It doesn't have the, is it the Soul Stone?
Yeah, but here's the thing, though, that you can't actually do that because everything else is so fundamentally different. I mean, the original comic book storyline, which Adam Warlock was an integral part of, the reason he was an integral part of that storyline is because Adam Warlock and Thanos had an integral history before, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So you could make the argument that Adam Warlock, he needed to have been introduced at the same time as Thanos was introduced, or shortly after, in order to set that up. Once you didn't do that, then you have, in a sense, already removed Adam Warlock from the equation. You are no longer telling the Infinity Gauntlet storyline from the comics. You're doing something else now. Now you're dealing with a completely different Adam Warlock. I mean, everything has changed. The relation between them, you'll never get it again. Because in retelling the story for the big screen, Adam Warlock wasn't there. He and Thanos have no history together.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I can see that. Chris says tease Adam for a decade and we got window liquor Warlock. For fuck's sake. Oh dear. Very funny. Very, very funny. Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, I don't think there's too much else really to cover, to be honest. I think that about wraps it up, really, don't you think?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. I think we've done a pretty good job of breaking it down, discussing it, reviewing it. You've got your own review on Midnight's Edge, haven't you?
Not on the Midnight's Edge main channel. I haven't done a written review stuff like that. What I have is on Midnight's Edge live archives. I've clipped my initial thoughts straight out of the streaming that we discussed. That full 30-minute segment plus a 10-minute bonus discussion on the soundtrack or lack thereof is put up on Midnight's Edge live archives. And other than that, this is actually the detailed discussion.
Yeah. So please do check out Midnight's Edge live archives if you want. Well, I mean, you've had his thoughts anyway, but please do check out Midnight's Edge live archives. Gary for £2 says, "Is Harry Styles in it?" No.
Thank God.
There's no reference of anything like the Eternals or anything like that. It's its own thing. They sort of box it away nicely, so there isn't. Guys, please do hit subscribe. Please do check out in the description box Mr. H Reviews live archives, which is it's the live clip channel basically. So this as a stream, as a podcast, will go up there. It won't be on the main channel, so it will go there. So head on over there afterwards, and it'll just be this. It will just be as this. There's nothing really to clip, to be honest. It is 1 hour long review. But that about wraps it up, I think. What have you got coming up, Andre? Got anything good happening?
Yeah, working on several videos right now, actually. Thinking of the next one might be a video on the whole Bud Light controversy.
Oh, you're wading into that.
But because it ties in with everything that's happening with Star Wars, Star Trek, race bending in Disney. It's all driven by the same behind the scenes forces, and that's what makes it relevant.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, we sort of waded into it on here, didn't we, briefly, to be honest. But yeah, I'm amazed it's still going. I'm happy it's still going.
I'm not amazed at all.
Well, I'm amazed that people got the conviction for it, because normally they don't. Let's put it that way. Normally,
I know, and that's the problem. I mean, that's why we find ourselves in this, because too many people aren't informed and they don't have the conviction to actually vote with their wallets. But in this particular case, it's perfect because it was so easy. All you have to do is, one, if you are a beer drinker in the first place and you are in America and Bud Light was your drink of choice, all you have to do is now just buy another beer that costs the same, tastes the same, just comes in a slightly different box with a very different branding. Because what I thought was so fascinating with this is that the marketing team who tried to rebrand Bud Light, they inadvertently gave it another branding. They didn't mean to do that, but thanks to TikTok, Twitter, and everything like that, their previous loyal drinkers now basically doing their own mock videos and everything. The new branding of Bud Light is, if you drink this, you'll be gay. I just think it's glorious.
Fuck's sake. Well, so guys, stay tuned over on Midnight's Edge for that, because that sounds like it'll be absolutely hilarious. What have I got going on? Not an awful lot, to be fair. I see people in the chat going, is there going to be a member stream? Unfortunately not. So on Tuesday, I popped my back, basically. And for those that don't know, I've been dieting really heavily for a bodybuilding contest, and it's really annoying because on Tuesday was legs, and I was like, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm 5 weeks out on Saturday. I'll stop doing squats. I've been doing them all the way through this diet. So I'll stop doing squats because I don't want to risk my back. And all I did was pivot. I wasn't doing anything. I just pivoted, and my back fucking popped out. I'm like, oh my god! So I'm on codeine, paracetamol, ibuprofen. So yeah, I need to go rest it basically, because I've lost like 12 kilos from dieting, and I can't risk it going backwards, because otherwise I've been putting myself through pain for nothing. So yeah, so it is unfortunate, but we've got our chill stream on Sunday. I'm seeing my sports therapist on Monday. I'm sure I didn't see her this week, so which is actually that's why I attribute to my back going out, actually, believe it or not. It's all very preventative stuff. So I'm seeing her Monday. I'm sure it'll be good to go, and then next week we'll be back with the members streams. So I do apologize, but we will be back to it. But I just wanted to address that. Other things going on, not an awful lot this weekend. I'm not overly sure what's happening with content this weekend, just because I'm sort of celebrating my birthday this weekend, which was last weekend, but I'm celebrating it this weekend, so I'm doing some bits and pieces. But there will still be content, mark my words. And then Sunday, we've got our chill stream as well, so stay tuned for that. And then obviously next week, as always, podcast going on and things like that. So yeah, that's happening. Hit subscribe to Midnight's Edge. Please do check them out. And that's about it. Not much else really going on. From me and Andre, I guess we shall say cheerio now.
Yeah, take care, everyone, and we'll see you around.
Peace out, guys. Bye-bye now.